All right, so good evening, everyone. We're going to start the session with something, with making a mandala offering as a token for express. No need. No need? All right. So let's do the dedication prayers. Dagi chuji yibe fangi dora desi sanje tuba sho sanji chula tsoji chula la chanchu badu dami kyasuchi dagi chuji yibe fangi dora desi sanje tuba sho sanji chula tsoji chula la chanchu badu dami kyasuchi dagi chuji yibe fangi dora desi sanje tuba sho 강 교진이 손에 또 담지 공비실 감이 준든지 고동 개발 정세로 So are you guys doing the yoga? I'm just walking. Okay, just walking. Okay. Yeah, we have a yoga group visiting at the moment, so Geshe thought of maybe you're like flexing your muscles or. All right, it's okay. I think that it's kind of not doing yoga is totally acceptable here. Massage taji lo ne jito yoga. Yoga tena. Salve ne jito Macena, yeah. Cena. Yeah, there are some people that cannot really balance themselves well when they do yoga, you know, so they start to kind of strike a pose and they fall over, you know. So I guess that kind of indicate that they might be belonging to that group. So have you been to kind of Buddhist teachings before? Or? Never. Okay. Never ever. All right. So we
started the session with doing some recitation in Tibetan. So we recited a verse that is stating in English, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. By the accumulations I gather through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all. So there are 4 lines in this verse, and it includes 2 meanings, refuge and bodhicitta, and we use that in order to correct the motivation.
samzu chigwaji rotu marwasra khashela pengri khashela degen chagore khashi nan rungmari tadi zambling nang chidang rodang ro chikra misda chike shebane ya sanji chamden de pe ani jigden kam pebi kawale ya ani sanji sondi me samago kelen tugo marwasra.
So we have spoken of this verse before, and we also, when an explanation of this verse is given, when we all recite it, it's not that everyone will take it exactly in the same way. In some sense, some people will feel a greater affiliation with it. Some people will find no point of reference, no affiliation whatsoever with this verse. Some people will like it, some people will dislike it. We all coming from different dispositions, so of course we function differently. And the same thing also was for the Buddha, the Bhagavan, when he was active in India 2,600 years ago. He gave teachings, but it's not that everyone accepted or agreed with what the Buddha taught.
And Tindri Maimba, Sanju Chunguma Tolia, this chick Jantuana, Yacha Yatamba, Susum Senamolaya, Pendo Yobachik, and the Samu Tansa Yobachik, Chagi Yobadi, Penadang Yamu Yuslavna Chogodochik, Musunju Takchikaya, in Nanju Jamba Inza, Kokazus Jamba Inaya, Kanji Susu Laman Kazus start to a deep Sugi, Pendo Yobachik, Yamu Drubius Rock.
So then when we approach the teaching of the Buddha, particularly Geshe says that some of us here are doing it from a young age, then rather than thinking that I trust or I go for refuge to the teachings that the Buddha gave, rather than having straight on this attitude, it's good, first of all, to study and investigate what the Buddha said, to take the time to do that. And when you take the time to investigate what the Buddha said, you learn what the Buddha taught, and then you take it on to your practice. From that, you find some benefits that you might get. And Geshe said that having studied for more than 30 years, he likes this approach. He feels that, at least from his perspective, from his experience, this approach works better rather than assuming right from the very get-go that what the Buddha said is definitely correct. So first of all, we study. Whatever understanding we draw from our study, we put it into practice, and that's a beneficial way to progress.
아니 대화투야다 동서에 탑람다 케네치슈지야 차여바디 먼저 동할이야 류 동아데 샘 동아닝나니 딩안주 뇽이 쳐대디 샘마기바디 아니 류 마데발페티 아니 gangyurle 샘마기바디 슈체여바디 먼저 sortu고로스 딘자 다샘 동아세기 탑람 약슈디 아니 sanji chomden labja delegi ting sabajida dele yagaji mebadi peshi nanju tachen shutugores ro.
All religions teach ways of removing certain degrees of suffering or pain and developing a greater level of happiness and well-being. So we can say that all religions have the same purpose. All religions offer beneficial approaches for cultivating a greater degree of happiness and well-being and removing some degrees of suffering and unhappiness. So the Buddhist tradition also does that. In focusing on two different levels of happiness and suffering, there's one that we experience on a physical level and the one that we experience on a mental level. So physically, we experience pleasure or pain, and mentally we have happiness or suffering. And it is quite clear based upon a personal experience that whatever we experience on a mental level is much more significant than whatever we experience physically. In a sense that thinking of, for example, states in which a mind is unhappy, situations in which a mind is made unhappy, or when a mind is not well, we can see how those experiences are much more significant than whatever physical experience we have. So the Buddhist tradition offers approaches for enhancing our mental happiness and well-being. In fact, we can say that looking at the different tools and techniques that are employed within the Buddhist tradition, we can say that it is of the most refined traditions or deep traditions that teaches how to develop a greater degree of mental happiness and well-being.
and not so much Nanzumele, Guguyores, that D Chagi Mansam Korea, Jadan Samba Makiba, Yunguyor, the Inaya, Titsangi, and it's Chagian Titsangi, Zoba Sangi, and it's Sandi at Digita, Sempe Papuchi, Yon 2 years, and Zagin Yon 2 Maros. Tim Mevanza, Dintiki Chagi Manzumbi Melanea, and it pay Semple Chin, Sem Devi Mani, and it Mitsiki to Yachiko, Yungu of a dig Karchangor Slandi. And the same with the Gidi, got me so much Tony, and the same with the Gidri Yovachi, Peshi, Chungores rock.
So there are situations where a mind is made unhappy, and indeed, external conditions do contribute to mental unhappiness. Of course, there are external situations, things that happen outside that affect mental happiness, making a mind distressed or unhappy. But it is not only external conditions that affect the mind. We might look at our financial situation, the possessions that we have, the facilities or the conditions that we enjoy, and indeed they affect our mental happiness and well-being, but they're not the only factors that affect our mental well-being or happiness. It's not that only if you have them, money, possessions, facilities, conditions, and so forth, then you will find happiness, so your state of mind would be easy and comfortable. That state of mind that is at ease, that is relaxed, that is comfortable, is developed mainly from within. And this is the state of mind that we want to have as a lifelong state of mind, a state of mind which is relaxed, which is at ease, which is happy, which is well. And we can enhance or work on those internal conditions that will nourish that mental health, mental happiness and well-being.
Dinza Pena, Sem Magia, Sem Made, Zodi, and Zodi, and Sem True Wangi, Sem True, Tria Zodia, and in Mishibi Wangi, and Chadanki, Wangi, Magiva Yunguyawadi, Tamati was Soviova, Nalo Manchamba, Chayala Soba, Penzuchi, Manchamba Yon, Samalo, Chadangi Wangi. And
so now when we look closely at our situation, we can see how when the mind is unwell, when it is disturbed or agitated, the next thing that happens is disturbing emotions. So anger arises and depends upon a disturbed mind, or attachment or other states arise on the basis of a mind that is disturbed. And they cause us to not live in harmony with each other. They bring about conflict or disagreement, which then erode our ability to live happily or comfortably. If we inspect that based upon a personal experience, we can see how those states of mind, mental disturbance or unhappiness, gives rise to anger, attachment that bring about conflict and disagreements.
데레다 콘로다 차단 슈지온디 부스토로다스 sem 부스토로 아니 마기바살 된자 지 나준도 스멜 때문에 메디 카주스 고양부지가 뒤쪽이 에 메디 코란 기우여바 아니 코란 틀이 메소이나 아니 기우여바 디자 디기 나미나 기우여바지 아니 나준 통도 왔어라 된자 먼저 셈 고양부지야디 다 sem diake lavshat senamundu ani somsin di da ship tsakshudi ani gishudi in sabshudi ani sanjig lavjane legores da dinganzu chi ani chuchu chi ni namolaya kamakashi namolaya ngodru chi tuyaj da mardine kanji dinalores inza dinji chi yobati ani ngunzim toni ani sanjig lavjane yaj labaina When
the mind is narrow, when it is uptight, we can see that it fuels a degree of unhappiness. And that brings about not only a sense of discontentment, but also we're unable to relate well to others when the mind is so narrow. The opposite of that is a mind that is open and spacious, which affects our happiness and well-being. Not only it affects us personally, but it also affects the people around us. When a mind is happy, when a mind is relaxed, when a mind is calm, it seems that there's an effect that it has on the people around us, in our close surrounding, our family unit. So what we're dealing with in the Buddhist tradition is ways of nourishing, enhancing that mental openness, is that spacious state of mind. So it's hard to then introduce the topic or to make it completely clear just within a span of a few minutes or a couple of hours, for the Buddhist tradition offers one of the most profound and deep explanation of how to bring about that spacious and relaxed state of mind. But still, we make our way. We progress in order to attempting to identify how to engender a spacious state of mind. And if there are a couple of things that we can draw upon and apply them to a personal situation, then certainly we can gain to benefit from developing a better or a spacious state of mind.
어디를 딘자다 먼저 까보기 산지처도 좀 잔주보도 다음 깨우치세 특히 담아디 아니 장주 비게 아니 디 고탐보 송대게 아니 상기에세디 아니 장주 탐이게 장주 마토벌세 장주 대당 담보 상기에세 칭니버디 민자마도 한다 집어차고레스.
So in this verse we say, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Supreme Assembly. So the first line says, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened. Then it says to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and so forth. So the Buddha and enlightenment are two words, but they mean the same thing. They are different words, but they mean the same thing.
Tinza, 당보 상기치 견딘 송디게 아니 송야게 가서다 시자 쪽으로디 만족이 캡로 만족이야 캡미 근인기 이 캡유드 문제원디 상기 송여레스 다 상기 캡담보 상기 캐랑기 공방디 네기 캐랑 공방 마타 바르도 캐랑에 캡주기스 로 잔주마도 담께서 주세 찌기 된다 디차고라스.
And when we think of the meaning of these two lines, we say, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and so forth, which means that I trust the Buddha, I go for refuge to the Buddha from this point on until I myself become Buddha, until I become like you.
진짜 나 디기 카르된 거서 디기 다 상기기 통원비 랍샤치기 상기 위치 진행 쪽이다 아니 통만 봐도 저래도 왔어 강 언줄이야 캡되는 캡 타투바디 이게 공방 수수기 디 공방 온도 지주 여바식 된 것도 왔어.
So that highlights one of the unique aspects of the Buddhist tradition, in that we go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher, but this is also what we seek to attain at the end. We want to evolve, and our final state, the final state that we want to evolve to is Buddhahood, just like the original Buddha.
제딘자 먼저 캡 타투가 디 이게 공방디 안 소수 톱기여 같이 소수 톱기여 같이 직송거래스 다디 아니 톱 고야기 괜찮다 아니 톱수 그런바디 다 먼저야 고도스 톱 고야기 괜찮카레스 라운디 먼저 대원 되고요 동안 되고 매바인자 아니 께 콘세 연된 콘덴기 공판직디 먼저야 아니 네버 된기 고야지 로 먼저 고야지 차되고 로스.
So we want to evolve to the point in which we ourselves become Buddhas. That's a final destination, the state of Buddhahood. So there are 2 points that we need to be clear about. First of all, we need to be clear about the reason why it is possible for us to become Buddhas. Right? So we want to know how come it is possible for us to become someone that has eliminated all faults and has developed all positive qualities. That's the first thing that we want to be clear about. The second thing is the way of going about and developing a state in which we are free from all faults and have all positive qualities. But first thing first, we'll begin with looking into the reason why it is possible for us to attain that final state.
데레다 먼저야 톱 고구열에 톱 굿배나 균센을 주고 있는 가진 톱 고르스나 먼저 대원되고요 동원 되고 매바로지 로 균센 디 돈이 아니 먼저 타와다 탐지기 공부 톱 고야디 아니 균센 디 돈이 줍초고레스.
First off, we can ask ourselves, why do we need to attain the state of Buddhahood? Well, we begin with the basic recognition that all of us want to be happy and not wanting to suffer. I want to be happy. I do not want to suffer. And therefore, I need to become Buddha.
다 톱기 여러베스. 톱 고구 여는야 톱기 여러베 여 말세기 지워디 레그로스. 진짜 다 톱기 여바디 다 먼저 다 균생 거라 톱기 여비 균생지 거라스.
And then the next question is, can I become Buddha? Can I attain that state? Right, so I want to become Buddha because I don't want to suffer. I don't want suffering. I want happiness. Is it possible to become Buddha? We need to find the reason why it is possible.
예, 다 톱기 여비 균생디 다 지단 균생 다 마무 쉬죠라스. 이내야 균생 쪼르도 톱기 여비 균생 가르스나 톱발에 바르 쪼시기 아니 스위치기도스. 로 마토바기 톱이야기 가서다 톱이야래야 아니 고기한다 무슨 스위치기레스 라운디 고기엔 쪼디 단지 쇼데야기 셈 마롱이 베나 아니 몽바다 차바다 아니 컨트롤러 소비 안 딘디기 셈 디기 아니 산기 토발이야 아니 바로 찍으면서 디 쌈에 소투가이나 뒷삼에 소토가나 산지토그레스.
So then when we start to look closely into whether it is possible for us to become Buddha, we need to look at what are the things that prevent us from being Buddhas. Why is it that we are not Buddhas now? What are the things that prevent us from being Buddhas now? Well, there are certain obscurations. To begin with, we have afflictive states of mind, confusion or ignorance, attachment, anger. These afflictive states of mind prevent us from being Buddha. So the next question is, can they be eliminated?
데르다 딘지기 마로미 차디 다 세기여바디 로 세기여바디 간지 주고스나디 딘지기 셈 코나 가서다 메덴바온 아니 진당 메바 아니 셈 록시지 미토기 and do yours.
So these are states of mind that we want to eliminate. We want to eliminate anger, attachment, and ignorance. So when we look at those states of mind, what we find that, first of all, these states of mind are not to be trusted, in that they are untrue, in that they are erroneous, they are mistaken. They erroneously engage their object.
다들다 먼저 단다 디기 집에는 자담노성기 셈도 소바디 아니 록시리 엔직슬라온 디기 시드 착부로 슈즈도스 이내야 디기 거기 렌세 찍려야 빼나 아니 다와치 소리 뒤즈탄 수치 장자와나 뒤즈페 아니 야스 야탄바 로야치 코데우치 차유도스로.
So we use those terms here. We call afflictive states of mind wrong consciousnesses. They say that they are erroneous. It might sound technical or complicated, but Geshe reckons that if you spend some time studying that, like for example, if you give yourself a month to look at those states of mind, anger, attachment, and ignorance, and so forth, then you come to see how they are erroneous. Definitely, you can see that very clearly. You can see clearly how these states of mind are wrong consciousnesses.
That dinjigi semdi na segi na karigi to gisegures laundi karigi to gisegres yujen karate ni segri rauch ro diko ta choyungra yujen karate ni segres laundi ani niba ani manzu gyawi niba ani chokunjo tone ani sangi toyage parchugi pigi gaji ani nimumba digidi and shogunjo ton setugres.
Now, if there are erroneous states of mind, the next question is, what can put a stop, what can eliminate those erroneous states of mind? What can eliminate them is the second object of refuge, the Dhamma, the Dhamma jewel. We use the Dhamma jewel in order to eliminate our erroneous states of mind.
Rather, chokunjo diada, Temindi, and Temasangi, Lamdan Namiji, Lam di togi, Setugres Lam, Tangigi, and Lam teleteni, and Sanji Tobala, Parchuziki, the Numuba, the Shijijuba, Maseg Pardo, and Karanaya, and Yabjugi, Chagdas Rock.
And the one that taught us how to eliminate those states of mind is the Buddha. So in going for refuge to the Buddha, the type of commitment that we develop in our mind is that we're going to go for refuge to the Buddha from this point on until we will completely eliminate our obscurations, afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations. Until I'm able to completely eliminate them from my mind, I will go for refuge to the Buddha.
Tilda only that chokunjo seondi, chokunjo di, that nimun sebi, sebadi, lea, gobas lab, so di 디톤의 샤가도스 단 고바 니무 세비 세번 고바 문도 제 탑조디 아니 최남지 내루 대코나니 온손 도베다 도마니 온손 도비 이시라 소바 디디 아니 최군저가 뭐샤니 디 컴퓨터기 아니 니무 세수지 송요레스라.
So we spoke about the Dhamma refuge, the Dhamma jewel. Now the actual Dhamma jewel, to begin with, is a cessation, an elimination of these afflictive states of mind, these obscurations. And methods for putting a stop to those obscurations. The method that we speak of is mainly a perceptual realization of emptiness, an exalted wisdom that perceptually realizes emptiness. So we go for refuge to that. We go for refuge to a perceptual realization of emptiness, which is the method for bringing about a cessation of the obscurations that prevent us from being Buddha.
true yungura ben tang nimuse be sevasna karse tomani most of is na toni sna karse ta dingi singmu ta khandas jango re tawchi ro ti khandas ini shima chego se chiwadi ro dona chingi chiwadi lego ro.
It's becoming complicated, doesn't it? If you haven't studied that before and you're confronted with those terms, an elimination of afflictive obscurations, elimination of the afflictions, exalted wisdom, realizing emptiness, and so forth, they might seem to you so foreign and so complicated, then you might be thinking, how am I going to learn that? How am I going to get my head around what they actually mean? So there's quite a lot of fact-finding or information that we need to look for to begin with in order to understand how can we bring a stop, how can we bring an end to our afflictive states of mind.
That di song digi tene kyarangi di shingingi ani penata gegen sangojleya ra gendu kunjos shinamashina tenda zo di ani dimjigi sangiela pardu chebi nimumpa da shijitaba tamche sebachibi tap ani gobodan lamlaya teni ani rumba joncheni ani gyuyongi shingingi gegenjleya teni kyaran jangbaina ani shintugres and talk into control said so the need to shagdos.
So in order to gain the knowledge that we need, in order to understand that, we rely upon teachers, qualified teachers, or a teacher that teaches us. This is what we call the Sangha jewel. So those that teach us how to develop true paths, a perceptual realization of emptiness, and how to bring about the elimination of afflictive obscurations and cognitive obscurations so that we will progress and finally attain the state of Buddha. Those that we rely upon are called Sangha. This is the third object of refuge, those that teach us how to do it. Which means that we rely upon someone that knows how to do that, a teacher that has that knowledge, which is, you could say, this is what an education system, or this is the foundation of an education system. You have teachers that have the knowledge that you seek to gain.
당연히 남길라고 하다. 견도 건조스나 간다지지. 먼저 신문들 그 비리야. 아니 신여가 간다지 하고 그래. 아니 간다지 땡고 그래서 남균이 제어마고 레딩도 왔어.
So that being the case, there are quite a few questions that arise subsequent to that. Like, for example, if the Sangha jewel consists of the teachers that give us the knowledge, the information with respect to what we need to do in order to do that, how do I know actually who is a qualified teacher? How do I know which person I can rely upon in order to get that knowledge.
This is that Tinsan Rojan, that Peshe, Tangi did of some down the wood. Let Hashi Dodge, Cousin Manzambali di Namolaya, and Nanchu Tolaya, Lobjon Chisag, Lob near Khan, and Chembudindi, Montpiores, Raw, Dendilaya, Lo Mishu Sumjilaya, Lobjon Chin, the Karan Lobjon Tachincha, Karan Cham, some Shinjas Lache, Lo near Kandi, and the Lake Treasure, Lake Momaj K. Yongijlaya, then to Vena, Peshi Karanaya, Chansalab to Gures.
In some sense, Geshe says that it seems that it is made easier at this point in time, in that looking at education systems, if you have someone that has studied in an education system, in a certain institution over 20 or 30 years, they're likely to have a certain certification. So we wonder, what teacher should I study from? Who is a qualified teacher? Well, to begin with, we can, as there are many institutions, we can look for teachers that have a certain qualification, certain certification.
So then Namju Gigan Zoinaya and Lavdaji Gigan Sevana Gigan Dilaya, Chagan Sammons and the Kolobjo Carton to Laker Karke Yeming Tony, and the Shijan drew over Nanshin in Droshavina, Peshing Yoga Chagmaris.
So in a school system, for example, when you have teachers, then if you're looking into who can teach in a school system, well, it depends upon whether the person has, in general, whether the person has studied education, whether they've completed the study, whether they have certification and so forth. Same thing, the same approach can be taken when you look at teachers in the Buddhist tradition. You can assess, you can check whether they have studied, whether they have the right qualifications. It will make it easier, and it can be made easier.
Ganji Sanji Chu Dodandi, Chansanji, the China will give a Shumashu said, Nesu Logaremato, Modri Chansanji, Chetuade, Peshi Gacha Gadores.
So it's good to check those qualifications, because you could come across someone that might claim that they are realized. They might say that I'm a realized person, I've reached that level of development. But then one thing that you can check, you cannot really check whether they are realized, whether they've reached a certain level of development. But what you can check to begin with is if they've studied. Where have they studied? How long have they studied? To what level they've studied? This is something that you can check, to make sure that the person that you rely upon at least has the knowledge. Whether or not you will receive the blessings of the lineage, that's one thing. But one thing that you can easily assess is whether they've done the study that you're looking, whether they've studied the knowledge that you're looking for.
Su 가정만 가르치시 소로지야 차와이나 디 야부자오니 요마레스 로
When you study science or medicine or accounting or what have you, then of course you will check that the teacher that you study with has studied that topic before, that they have the right qualification. So why wouldn't you do the same thing when you get involved with a certain spiritual tradition? You need to make sure that the person that you study with has the knowledge that you seek.
The temshures la words the lakir yongina temshudoji chitang lakir mengi dindi ya nangjung moni labtung dindi yonda chogros ra.
Now, saying that if someone has a graduation certificate, that's a person that you can rely upon when you study the Dhamma. Well, you can say that that's the most stable situation. However, there are also, of course, cases of people that haven't done the study, but still they are qualified to teach.
Things are ngaransolaya, ta sanji cholaya, capsu droganza, Kavio sanji cho gendun slaundi, so di, and sanji chodi, and manorwa, mantruwachi, love tungingi, geginjilaya, tengoya di, be kitchenbo, ra, to dinanolaya, kitchish tichagores.
Anyway, we're saying that because we are going for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And the Sangha we take to be those that teach the Dhamma, mainly those that teach the Dhamma. So as such, it is important to make sure that those that teach the Dhamma teach it in a way that is unmistaken, that is not distorted.
That didn't did some dangazuchi and a gamdru koto di kanji dordu doju tony dangazu tagara shagins did some of the shagins.
So over the last few sessions, Geshe has looked at the topic of refuge, the way that we go for refuge. So it seems that we've spoken about it quite some time. So maybe we'll suffice with that for the time being.
Sanji song yonsu zobi, Joja yonsu zobadi, and Gyapsungi, Geshe Gnanolaya, Dugures, Geshe Gibuch, Pena Shetungi Jimbana, Chansan Dinanolaya, Sanji Islam Digi, and Rama Chansan Dinan, Chu Gnanolaya, Chu, and Gendus, in a Chansan. In a Danganzo, get Kansan, something get Tavis and Sodrogas, Tamitsu.
And in speaking of the topic of refuge, we've spoken of the three objects of refuge, the three jewels. All the teachings of the Buddha, you could say, when you explain them extensively, all those extensive teachings are included within the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. All of them are subsumed within that. So if you have the time, and also you have someone that has the ability to go deeper into a more and more extensive presentation of the teachings of the Buddha, you can see how they are subsumed under the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha.
Dagi jinso jibin sonungi, Drola Benji Sanji Dribble show said. Digi so di and Semge Tenguris, Semge Korti Sonyoris, right?
Anyway, we began this session with reciting the verse for refuge in bodhicitta. So we said, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Supreme Assembly. Those are the first two lines. The last two lines say, by the accumulations I gather through generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all. So these two lines teach us the second aspect, which is bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment.
That digi so Karshigor Slaundi, Kanging on the Gamju Kalaya, and then Gavu Musum Kalaya, and the Chokonjos she, Chokonjo Namalaya, so the Goba the Lamishe, Lamdi and so the and Pinil Tomani topic, Sheriff Shayores, that Chitani Manzulia, Pina, Milaya, Namju Yungi Baina. Mikazus Namju Yungi Jimena, Namju Chiku Tony, any Namju Chawa Chejo Karina, Druptuya, Yomaras, Telia, Tabshi Guros, Namju Yobata, Tabshi Yoba, Nitso Tony, Chawa Karina, Druptu Yoros. These are any Sanji Chedeya, and Namju Sheriff Chigu, Dangameba, Telia, Tab, Robot Tabjigu Yoinza, and so Tab Tengores.
We spoke of the Dhamma Jewel, and the Dhamma Jewel consists of true paths and true cessations. And we mentioned true paths, which are mainly perceptual realization of reality, wisdom that perceptually realizes reality, the way that things are. But if you have that alone, in that if you have a person that is a really smart person, being smart alone is not going to be enough in order to accomplish your goal. You also need to be skilled in means. You also need to be skillful. You also need to use the right methods in order to accomplish what you want. You need the method side. So this is also the case for the Dhamma Jewel. You need true paths, which are wisdom, but wisdom alone is not enough. You also need that skillful means.
Terda ta tak kareslandi so di semke said dandikali semke thing reslandi semke goslandi sem gake lo gake di and ta ya ton 춘종지 톤이라 춘종지 톤이 아니 부수도 차야지 만도베게 아니 되든 drutu에 메면서 로 gake go도 said so reshas dikal야.
And when we speak about skillful means or the method side, what we refer to mainly here is bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, which is also called the generated mind. It is translated in different ways, the generated mind or mind generation. What it means is that we generate a mind that is vast and extensive. Currently, our mind is quite narrow. It is quite confined to certain affairs, and when a mind is so narrow, we're not going to be able to accomplish something that is great, a purpose that is great. In order to be able to do that, first off, we need to make the mind vast and spacious. We need to generate a mind that is extensive.
아니 마기발 레데야디 용기여다 난도 세우로지라스라.
And when we look at the meaning of having a mind that is narrow or uptight, the main thing with a mind that is narrow is that we can only consider our own welfare, what's happening to us at the moment, and we can see how reactive we are to even a slight situation that disagrees with us. So if there's a slight thing that happens to us, we immediately react and make a big deal out of that. This is a mind that is narrow, a mind that is uptight.
Penanganzu dachi lavji gege인한다 맹강난기 멤바이마이나 안치 수수기 라바오라야 찍고 전에 성당 대와이나 아니 로트 참말로기 통수 마이 맞제와치 용거로스 데 틀리 로트 소리야 간다치 토니 라고도 간다치 토니 펜도 두삼이 토니 아니 게겐디 성의 야체스탄 라바이나 아니 라보 셔라라디아치 디셔라야치 아니 소마초이나데 아니 피 내가 쟁인 소이나 상으로 게겐디 야부요 세치 란싱 차인도스로.
And we can see how it works in different affairs. Like, for example, when you're a teacher, if you're teaching at school, your attitude could be such that the only thing that you're concerned about is your salary. And if the only thing that you're concerned about is your salary, Geshe reckons that inevitably you will have some disagreements with your students. You'll face different criticism from your students, or different forms of criticism from your students. Whereas if your attitude is not solely concerned about your own welfare, your own salary, but if you're genuinely interested about helping and increasing the knowledge of your students and finding out different ways, different methods in order to act for the welfare of your students, to help them develop the knowledge, Geshe reckons that on the side, or as a byproduct, you'll be able also to accomplish your own welfare. Certainly, you will be better appreciated, more appreciated by the school system and by your students.
Siena pass some down to Vina, and to Chuchi Kamachi Jong and Yushich, and call Tebe Tango in Samnaya, Katsi Chiamel. 또 시원이 지속 거라니 아니 소소라야 통주야고치 란싱레이고도 와서 어딘난싱기 단다 샘기에서디 소소치고 상로 많이 봐 소소 칸도 데비게 아니 지속 거란 돌아야 상당통인기 메진바이나 아니 로게치에다 미 감각이 아니 통주야 연구가 뺏으로서
If you're only concerned about yourself when you're doing a particular job, time might pass really slowly. Whereas if your main orientation is not yourself, but the welfare of others, you're finding ways to be of benefit to others, even if you have to do overtime, 50 minutes more or some more time to, that is required to work for the sake of others, you'll be able to do that with a greater aptitude, and time will pass more easily or comfortably. Not only that, you will be better appreciated by society. In general, you'll have a better image, better reputation in society, which will also make things much easier on you. So we can see how it works with attitude that is more self-oriented or self-centered versus an attitude that is other-oriented.
that's 단다 디기 츠간 아니 순베콜이야 순바원 시베콜이야 되니 송야기 샘게세 디기 자오조디 난조기 소스치고 섬데 많이 봐 소스치고 비기야 가서다 간지 소스치고 섬데 많이 봐 탐체로이라 찌규르기 섬tan 투야치 고구두스
So the third and fourth line, let's say, by the accumulations I gather from generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha for the sake of all, is essentially about generating a mind that is not concerned about our own welfare alone, but a mind that is able to consider everyone else, ourselves, another, exactly in the same way.
당한 생의 연구라서 참고 지결기 상로 간다치 땅고 그래서 참고 지과 멤버 삼성 도바지인 거라서
Now you might be thinking, how is it possible to consider everyone as equal? Since that, when I think about it now, it seems that it is impossible to develop the recognition, the equal consideration of everyone.
예, 난조기 롬바 만다바리 도 만다바리 미 칼레 만다바리 직직 여러다 아니 가시 숨진 돈조리 가시 미리 간듯이 죽다 거세 디지 망고게 에 비글이야 직줄 땀 못으사가 상당히 배 망고 열시다.
So we come up with many ideas why it is not possible to consider everyone as equal with a sense of impartiality. We might be thinking that it's not possible because we are different to each other. We come from different places, different countries. We belong to different races. We have different skin complexion, different colors of eyes. Well, we come up with different reasons why that would not be possible. We think that we are human beings, and likewise there are other living beings, there are animals and so forth. So how can we consider everyone equal?
네, the do something logain sambi samu di ke ondi ge and parta rimbu rochi ro and paralea parta rim rochi sem korang sugudos.
And when we think that it is not right to consider everyone as equal, in our mind there is a gap or a distance that is created between ourselves and others. It seems that we are removed from others.
다양 난주기 pen samdang chilaya nga ngani phamachiki pingye sambi samu chiyobena semda nya surgudos ta nya surgudos ra.
But then if you think of another person, for example, as your sibling, thinking that we were born to the same parent, then in your mind, there's a sense of closeness that is developed.
제 많이 롬바치과 인삼삼도치 samdangwe는 양 ta nya choyachi.
Or like, for example, thinking that we belong to the same place, to the same country, then there is a sense of closeness that is developed.
nganzu michi bare sang joba na ta nir choya chi yon chogro sra.
Or you think that we're the same as human beings. We're the same as people. So then there's a sense of closeness that is developed.
아니 nganzu 아니 베는 소수기 니 대화 되고요. 동안 되고 매바 나 신기 넌 상고 찌규인 마 상고 대화 되거든. 동안 문제 찌규리와 삼성 상호 지여바나 텔레짱 아니 디토네 찌바 이메지 다 투야지 야지야당 여러 왔어.
Or even more so when you think that they are just like me. They want to be happy and they don't want to experience suffering just like me. So if you think about it like that, Geshe reckons that even more so, you'll be able to recognize the equality between yourself and others and to develop a sense of closeness to others. Just like me, they want to be happy and they do not want to suffer.
terda di so di ton son yores ta sanji la je so di nganzu dewa dewa dang tungam mun dewa chigir yimza ani nganzu chig ani ya le ya chago ya de chig yawa torgo ya lo soba an dinji gi ani gyunsen tang samlo di ani samlo loba yimach to ya son yores.
And this is the basis that we work with, or that we recognize in following the Buddha's teaching. We recognize that basic principle of recognizing that all sentient beings want to be happy and all sentient beings want to suffer. Otherwise, we sometimes come up with reasons for taking up a certain position or developing a certain attitude that seeks our own victory, even if it comes at the expense of others. Even if we come up with a certain justification for following a certain path of action where we are going to be on the winning side and someone else is going to be on the losing side, whatever reason we use in order to do that, it is not the right reason. It is a similitude of a correct reason, but it is incorrect.
nanzu soja yodo cho chigba yin da mendi ani sozo pena manyin samdang wa ne ya samdang du shimju chen ngoni gi sanji sonja wa di samong chigyu redo samsong gi samlo di mi mangol legores inza nganzu samlo nganzu di samdan suzu samle dille tu ba chawaina ani chagdang chogri shu chedegi samlo di tenden yon to tu wasares ro.
So then when you start to think about it, you analyze the equality between ourselves and others. All of us are equal in that sense. And it's not that you need to be in a particular posture in order to analyze. So you can do that even lying down. So you think of the teachings of the Buddha, considering that premise of the Buddha's teachings that say that all of us are equal in seeking happiness and wanting to avoid suffering. And when you start recognizing that this is at the very basis of, at the very core of our actions and wishes, states of mind such as anger, attachment, and so forth start to lose the power.
Terida manzugi semkiagi tanda semki sondi semki gi zaw ninji gi tonda ani semki dang rumbagi shima dawdi tanda gugudos an samlo ani dewa ta dongam dewa chikür yimba di susu semna ya chi negav samtang samayimba gyundeng be ani so chakbu ton yonaji yobaina ani ninji de chanju sensingi di ani nyamne chiale pe lelhar ro lelhar de dimmebaina jiza kora dimmebaina ani ninji ki gorslana peshi yomisi godchik dichagdosra.
So in relation to the last two lines in this verse that pertain to the generation of bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, we begin with recognizing the equality between ourselves and others. All of us want to be happy and no sentient being wants to suffer. That forms the very foundation for the development of bodhicitta, for the development of compassion and the development of bodhicitta. And if we only consider that every once in a while, then bodhicitta will not arise. We need to be thinking about it regularly. We need to incorporate that regularly into our way of thinking in order to create that solid foundation for the development of bodhicitta. Have you got any questions? It's all right if you don't have any questions. You can also think about what Geshe has said, and if you have questions, subsequent questions, when we can discuss them next week. So, so maybe we'll just leave it here for today. We'll do some dedication prayers. Chanchu Sancho Rinpoche, Make Bana Kigirchi, Kevanya Bambevaya, Konde Kondu Pervarasho, Riawe Kovechin Kamsu, Pendande Wama Lujowen, Chenre Sewan Tenzin Kyatsoye, Shape Sete Partu Tengyuruchi, So Chanchi Changun Yare, Tenzin Kyompe Konzo Dopose, Chosung Kovele Manjugiro, Pan Tanso Dushingun Shakten Sho. 남기들 때는 미시마 지금 곧 쓰고라. 곧 당분 이치에 라고 말아. So, you know, we have sometimes people that lead those recitations, those dedications. So, you know, we wait for them to say the first word, and then we join in. You know, so sometimes Venerable Chuki is doing that. She's not here. You know, so when she's not here, sometimes I jump in and kind of start it, and sometimes I'm just lazy, so I don't do that. And Geshe was waiting now for someone to do it, so no one did it, so he just jumped in and did it, and he had to kind of make it up as it went. Anyway, thank you. Thanks, Nigel. Leonie. Ellie and Lindsay. Hello.
Hello. Good evening.
I'm still waiting to see a dog. I haven't seen it yet.
We can bring him up.
We need to bring it up. Maybe bring it up for tomorrow's teaching. We have teaching at 10:30.
Okay. Here he is. Look, I'll show you. He's eating a bone at the moment.
All right.
Can you see him? It's pretty dark. Banksy.
Can't see it
Banksy,
yet.
look. There's Venerable Yaki. Look.
Lindsay and Ellie have, I think, it's so cute.
You see him or not?
They have a puppy.
He's getting really big.
Yeah, I want this puppy.
Okay, we'll bring him up tomorrow.